like you mentioned, the Franklin Covey or Atomic Habits or things like that. They're talking about the conscious habits, right? Conscious habits of successful people. Now, that's all well and good, but there's one enormous problem that they never told us. And that is that if you were to interview these highly successful people, you would start to realize that they're doing things unconsciously that they don't even know they're doing, number one. And therefore, number two, they can never teach it to us. So that's why I created a program, a process, a framework called the Power Habits System, the power habits of unconsciously successful people.
Hey everybody, Cam Hemphill here, your host for the Medical Millionaire podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. My goal is to give incredible value and insight for practice owners. We are here to help educate you. We want to help you take your practice to the next level. And so every episode that we produce is 100% designed to achieve that. Guys, I have an incredible guest on today, a gentleman who's worked with very well-established names, and I have to name drop a few of them. We spent some time offline. We got to know each other a little bit. I want to welcome Noah St. John. He owns the clinic.com, the successclinic.com. And he's worked with names like Jenny McCarthy, Gary Vanderchuk, Dr. Stephen Covey. These are some pretty serious names, and it makes true sense to have him on the show. He's got an incredible background and written, tremendous, compelling books. And so, Noah, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks, Cam. Great to be here.
Thanks so much for joining. I know you're super busy, and I want to build on that. Just like these names are incredible. Obviously, I think most of the people that are tuning in understand the level of who these people are. Give us more of a detail of your background, who you are, what you do, and how you serve.
Well, I help entrepreneurs to make more in just 12 weeks than they did in the previous 12 months while winning their lives back. And what I mean by that is winning back 1 to 3 hours in your day and 8 to 12 weeks in your year. So there's lots of people out there who say, hey, I'll help you make more money. All you have to do is work 10 times harder, work 10 times longer, don't take vacations, don't see your family. Sound good? And I'm like, no, that doesn't sound good. It's like, where are you at? I want a life, So I'm here helping the entrepreneur who really wants to, yes, of course, make more money, but more importantly, win their lives back. Go to those ballet recitals, go to the soccer games, see your family again, and literally win back your life. So that's what I do. I've been doing it for 30 years now. It started online in 1997, so a long, long, long time ago. And I've helped my clients add over $3 billion as a result, meaning helping people, entrepreneurs, to add multiple 6 figures, 7 figures, and even 8 figures. And for example, one of my clients right now, I'm coaching him through a 9-figure exit. So yeah, he's going to walk away with over 100 mil, which is pretty awesome. So anyway, so that's who I help, and that's what I do.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I mean, kudos to that guy and all the work that you're putting in to help somebody achieve such a long-lasting, wealth opportunity for generations.
Yes.
Right? Hey, I see one thing on your website. I've taken the time to dissect it as much as I possibly can. You have a tremendous amount of value on there, but you talk a lot about scale without friction, reclaim your life, something that you're talking about a minute ago. But it sounds great. I'm an entrepreneur. Everybody that tunes in owns a practice. They sell time. That's what they do. They sell time. Their patients receive value. Their patients receive transformation. How do you do that, right? How do you do that with reclaiming your life back? It's hard as a parent. It's hard as a role as providers, practice owners. Talk to us about that.
Okay, absolutely. So as I mentioned, this is what I've been doing for over 3 decades now and helping people make over $3 billion collectively. So the thing that I want everyone listening to this program to realize is something very, very key that really I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but something that is crucial for them to understand, number one, and more importantly, number two, understand what to do about it. And what it is this. Every business problem you're facing right now, every problem you're facing in your business right now is a friction problem. And that's why you need a zero friction solution. Now, here's what I mean by that. Let me break that down for you. So I want you to think about, for everyone listening, think about a business problem that you might have today, right? So it could be a marketing problem. It could be a scaling problem. It could be, I need to get more customers. I need to find more clients. I need more referrals. My ads aren't making money anymore. Whatever you want to name, whatever you want to point to. Okay, we all have problems in business, right? That's what our job is as the entrepreneur, is to constantly put out fires, right? Find those problems and solve them. Find problems and solve it. Well, when you look at those problems, I want you to start looking at them through what I call the friction lens. Where is the friction here? Number one. Number two, what is causing the friction? And number three, most importantly, how do I get rid of this friction so I can really scale up and make more money faster? All right. So let me give you an analogy, an example. All right. So I want you to think about your goals. Everyone in business, every entrepreneur, and I've worked with thousands of them over the last 30 years, every entrepreneur has goals, right? Of course, we've heard that a million times. You got to set your goals. We've heard it a million times. And so most entrepreneurs are very good at that, right? They know, okay, Noah, hey, you know what? I want to go from $1,000 a month to 100,000 a month. I want to go from 100,000 to $1 million a month. I want to go from 1 million to 10 million, whatever it is, right? Whatever your number is, wherever you're at right now. So what I want you to do is think about that goal as a destination, because that's actually what it is. A goal is a destination. So I want you to think about it like you're driving down the road. You're driving your car and you want to get somewhere, because that's what your car is. It's a vehicle to get you from point A to point B faster than you walking, right? I mean, you could walk to, down the street to the grocery store to pick up your groceries, but it's kind of inconvenient, right? So that's why we have these things called cars or trucks or SUVs or whatever you might drive. All right, it's a vehicle. Well, that's what your business is. Your business is also a vehicle. That is precisely what it is. What is a vehicle? A vehicle is a machine designed to help you reach a destination faster than you walking. Simple as that, right? So when you think about your car, so imagine you're in your car right now and you're driving. Well, what do you have in the car? You have two forces. There are two forces at work in your car. And that is the foot on the accelerator, which drives you forward, and the foot on the brake, which slows you down or stops you. So think about that for a second. So what is the brakes? What do the brakes represent in your car? It represents friction. That is, in fact, exactly how you stop. It causes friction and you stop. Isn't that interesting? But guess what's happening in your business? The precise exact same thing. So here is the bottom line, the big takeaway that I want people to realize. 99% of entrepreneurs are driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake. So you're trying really, really hard to reach your goals. You've got your foot stamped on that accelerator, but unconsciously and unbeknownst to you, you also have your other foot on the brake. And that is what's called friction. And that's what's causing all your problems. And that's why you need a zero friction solution. And that's what I've been providing. And that's why I've helped people make so much money and win their life.
I love that. That analogy was super helpful. And are you talking more on the risk side? Is it unlocking some sort of mechanism within our minds? Because like when I think of it from being an entrepreneur, starting companies, selling companies, building companies, going back in my early career, I've tried so many things and, a couple of them hit and did very, very well. Right. So when I look at that though, is it the psychological holdback? Is it where I found myself starting to scale quite quickly is I kept firing myself from objectives within the business, right? And in the very beginning, you wear all hats, right? And let's just look at it from a provider's lens, a practice owner's lens. You got to find a location. Let's just take from a startup, build a website, find a location. You got to get inventory. You got to get a website, SEO, all this stuff. You got to get an EMR, all these things set up. And then you start seeing patients. Typically, most practice owners are also the provider. In the majority of the world, the main revenue producer
Yes.
too. And so that has to be challenging because they're seeing patients. Here's the issue I see with them. They consistently see patients because that's what brings in revenue.
Exactly.
They need to make this disconnect of how do I start to bring in a team? Providers, admin, front desk, accountants, CPAs, coaches, whatever it is, marketing professionals to start to delegate some of these activities. And so I can start operating as a CEO. Can you talk to us about that from your perspective?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right on, Cam. You're exactly right. In fact, let me give you an example from one of my coaching clients. Now, her name is Dr. Stacy. She is a chiropractor up in Canada. And she came to me and she was doing well. In fact, she was a fourth generation chiropractor. So she was very, very good at her practice, at her craft. But she really wasn't very good at the business part of it, right? Which is, of course, very, very common, right? So whether it's a health professional, whether it's chiropractors, whether it's med spas, whether it's estheticians, They're very, very good at what they do. They're great artisans or craftspeople, but their business acumen, I mean, it isn't there, and it's not their fault. Nobody told them how to do it. Nobody taught them. Right. So they're just sort of thrown out there on the wall and say, good luck, hang out your shingle. And if you build it, they will come. No, they won't. No, they won't. Who told you that? That's a lie. So anyway, so she heard about me. A friend referred her to me. And so she decided to hire me as to coach her one-on-one. And one of the things she told me when we started was, well, Noah, I want to grow my practice. I want to see more patients so that I can make more money. And I said, well, Stacy, that's perfectly logical, right? I mean, you would think that. But I said, you know what you just told me? She said, what? I said, you just told me that your dream is to never see your family. Your dream is to work all these hours and then not see your family, never take vacations, because that's the only way you're going to make money. And she said, wow, I never thought of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm here. Right. I said, so what if we took a different approach? What if we took all of that knowledge that's in your head and we put it out into a series of information products like books and seminars and online courses and so on? I said, what if we took all that knowledge? Because guess what? You're teaching people how to live a healthy lifestyle, right? She said, yeah. I said, well, you have all this knowledge in your brain. What if we just took it from your brain and put it out to the earth? Now, I personally, me, Noah, I've written 25 books on this subject. So I'm very good at taking what's in my brain and putting it out to the earth in the form of books, coaching, courses, events, right? Those are the main ways that you can do it. There are many other ways, but those are the main ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I taught her how to do this. Long story short, now she's making 6 figures a month. She had never done anything near that before. And she said, and you can watch her video on my website, and you can see that she says that now I'm doing things I never would have dreamed of in a million years. So that's an example of how I help people to take what's in their brain, all that great knowledge that you have up there, and put it out to the earth in ways that, see, so let's take the esthetician, let's take the med spa. Well, it's obvious that people aren't going to drive 200 miles to come to your med spa. They're just not, right? They're going to go in their local area. But guess what? The knowledge in your head can be sold to the entire planet, can be sold to the earth. There's no geographic limitations on that. And so that's one of the things that I help my clients to understand is that, wait a minute, I'm limiting myself just by this thought process. I'm certainly not suggesting that you stop doing what you're doing. No, but you augment it while also gaining your life back. And so, in fact, what she told me when she first hired me to coach her, she told me that her dream was to take her family on a trip to the Grand Canyon. And they still live out in, the woods up in Canada. So, she said that this has been our dream for years. I said, okay, Stacy, that's great. I know I can help you with that. So I'm just curious, when would you like to do that? Like within what period of time? And she said, well, if we did it in the next 5 to 7 years, that would just be incredible. Well, she sent me the pictures from their Grand Canyon vacation trip. We got her there in 16 months. So instead of 5 to 7 years of trying to figure it out on your own, we got her there in less than a year and a half. So what is your life worth to you? What is your time worth? That's the kind of incredible value and impact that we're talking about.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I think it's interesting. I just got back from a conference. There's quite a few medical aesthetics conferences throughout the years, and one that just came up was the Aesthetic Next conference. It's a wonderful conference. I would say it's one of the larger ones, and there is a tremendous amount of practice owners, call them influencers within the space. They get on stage, they're well known, they have a robust social media presence, they probably built the course, they probably have an academy or some sense. People know who they are. People follow them, they look to them for advice and expertise. And this is it's a large industry, it's a rapidly growing industry, but it's a small community, right?
Right. Right.
So, and to your point, I see a tremendous amount of individuals, practitioners that have this craft dialed in. They have a very robust following on social media. And to build on that, to help expand the community network, I'm talking colleague to colleague, peer to peer, is there certain people that elevate in other areas of expertise. One could be at injecting neurotoxins, the other one could be filler, the other one could be microneedling, the other one could be how to run your practice like a business, the other one could be skincare, right? And so there's all these niches within the niches. And so to build on what you're saying there, with everything that we have now, all these platforms and online courses and coaching and the ability to publish a book and be on a podcast, for example, they could expand that reach and build a business within the business, if you will, right?
Right. Well, that's exactly right. And that's what I've been helping people do for a long time. So, one of the things that we have just launched at successclinic.com is a service called Get AI Visible. So, for the people listening to this program, you can actually go to aivisible.me and see how that works. Now, let me just explain that for a second. So, I'm sure everyone listening to this program is well aware that if you're doing traditional SEO, if you're doing, say, Google ads or Facebook ads or all of those traditional forms of advertising, your costs are going up and your reach is going down. And why is that? Well, it's because of the rise of these LLMs, right? These large language models like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, those are the main ones, and there's many others. But so what's happening is that on Google, you have a not great user experience. And that is you type something on Google and what are you slammed with? 10 million ads, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, I just wanted my query answered. Who's the best esthetician near me? Okay. So what we're seeing now is that because of the dominance of these LLMs, over 60% of all Google searches end up with 0 clicks. So you could literally be number one in your, area and get no clicks whatsoever. So what we're doing is we're helping people get AI visible. That's why we call it aivisible.me, because you want to get AI visible. So what we're doing is we're helping entrepreneurs, practice owners we're actually doing it for them because there is so much involved now. It's very different from the old traditional SEO. Now, I'm not suggesting you shouldn't do traditional SEO. I'm just saying that 6 out of 10 searches end up with 0 clicks. So that's why if you're noticing this in your practice, it's not you. The whole industry has shifted literally just in the last 6 to 9 months. So we're helping people with that. But the point that I want to get across is that you always have to be evolving. You always have to have your finger on the pulse of what is happening right now today, not what worked in 2019. And sadly, that's what still a lot of people are doing. And that's what a lot of people are selling is, hey, do this SEO or do these ads. Again, I'm not saying don't do them. I'm just saying you got to make sure that you are current with the times. And, we want to help you to get AI visible.
Yeah, that's interesting that you brought that up. You could go to ChatGPT right now and conduct a search query saying, "Hey, give me the top med spa in Florida. Give me the top med
Exactly.
spa in Miami,"
Exactly.
and it gives you a list, right?
Yes.
And it's snagging that list from a large data source, of course. What about Gemini? Right, I see Gemini taking off.
That's the fourth one. Yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, and Gemini. Those are the big four. Yes.
Gemini. I've been playing with it a lot lately, and they are doing something pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
If I was to say who's going to win this AI race, when I
Nobody
well,
knows.
yeah, no one
Nobody knows.
knows.
But see,
But I
that's
mean,
why you have to do these things
yeah.
that will make you AI visible. And you just said it, Cam. You said exactly right that when you put in a search best med spa in Miami, you're
Mhm.
going to get this curated list, but where does the list come from? Well, ChatGPT, just to use that as an example, because that's the most popular one by a million miles. It is what I call, I tell this to my clients all the time. ChatGPT is basically a smart 6-year-old. It makes stuff up all the time, right? If you haven't noticed that, you haven't been using ChatGPT. Right? It'll literally hallucinate. It'll make stuff up. But what's funny about it is it says it so confidently that you're like, oh, well, it's got to be true. No, it doesn't. No, it's a smart 6-year-old. So it's basically like, hey, did you eat that chocolate chip cookie? No, I didn't eat the cookie. There's no one else around. Of course you ate the cookie. Well, me, I didn't eat it. You see what I mean? You say you got to treat it like a smart 6-year-old. But the point about that is those curated lists are created by just it crawling the web. Well, you've got to be in there. You've got to be on that list when it does the crawl. And, there are several places that it goes to, primarily Wikipedia, Reddit, YouTube, LinkedIn, and places like that, and then followed by just blogs. So that's what we do with aivisible.me is we help people to do, we do it for you because the point is that it's really, really hard. There's a heck of a lot to it. And by the time you're through with it, it's like, do you think you have time to run your business? So we're taking that off people's plate so that they can get AI visible.
Interesting. Interesting. I love that. No, I think it's super important. And when I look through a practitioner's lens or provider's lens, primarily footprints that they live on would be Instagram and would
Mhm.
also be TikTok.
Exactly.
And the followings can get very robust and the engagement is extraordinary in a lot of cases. But I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not super active on LinkedIn in terms of posting, but I check my LinkedIn pretty frequently and I have a tremendous amount of connections. It's I don't see a ton of practitioners on LinkedIn, and they should be building out their resume, their profile. In fact, any way that you can have a professional profile to kind of to build on your point is you should be present there. You brought up another really interesting point, which was Reddit. And I think Reddit is just extremely underutilized. In fact, I came out with a personal podcast out maybe a year ago. And I was just talking about Reddit. It might have been longer than that, but it was just talking about the power of Reddit and how it's being indexed on Google because there's so many prompts going into it. There's so much user capacity too that's going into it. And people are looking for a source of truth. Right. And I mean, there's reviews on Reddit, like on everything now. There's opinions, there's voting. You can click the vote up button, the vote down button, and it feeds into the entire algorithm. And so, I think like in me living in the practitioner world, if you were to ask them what's your marketing strategy, I'm still a major fan of running Google ads, especially in this space and being present on Google Business Profile where you can get
Yes.
reviews, location sync. I'm still a big proponent of running ads on paid social, having a very robust organic social. Most people that are searching for a practice or a provider, they go to Google or Instagram, or they could go to one first or one the second. But I know when you look at the attribution touches, they do both because they want to see Google reviews, they want to see your website, they want to see your work, your personality, your before and afters. And what's interesting is we as buyers, we as patients, we can conduct diligence. And what I mean by that is I can tell if you're a provider I want to select in under a minute. I mean, that's the power of this thing right here. I can find you, I can search you, I can see who you're connected with. What if we have mutual followers, right? And then and chances are, if you live in a small market, you probably do. You probably, oh my gosh, so and so follows her. Cool. I'm going to hit her up and say, hey, it looks like you follow the same person. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Oh, she's amazing. Or, oh, she's not very great. Okay, red flag. And so you bring up I didn't know that you were going to bring that part up. And I think it's really interesting, but just to pivot for a second on like more of some of the in your books, your coaching programs, you talk about unconscious habits of highly successful people. I don't know if that was some of the Franklin Covey stuff, but what do you have to unpack there? I'm curious to learn a little bit about.
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up. That relates completely to what I was talking about earlier about friction, that every business problem you're facing is a friction problem. So you must have a zero friction solution. So, by the way, when you go to our website, when you go to noahstjohn.com, there are a ton of free resources and tools that you can use to eliminate the friction. Now, one of them is called our $1,000,000 Business Gap Finder. All right, just go to noahstjohn.com and you'll see it right on there. It's right on the homepage. And what it does is it's a custom GPT that I created because, like I said, I'm on the bleeding edge of all of these LLMs and ChatGPT especially. But it's a custom GPT, and you just simply answer a few questions, and it will actually give you a roadmap so that you can go from where you are to where you want to be. So whether you want to go from 10K a month to 100K a month, 100K to a million, or a million to 10 million, wherever you are on that spectrum, it will help you and it will literally outline it. Then, of course, if you want to get some help from us, it can recommend some resources, online courses, coaching, books, and all the different things that we have. Right. But so when it comes to the unconscious habits of highly successful people, this is one of the main reasons that I've helped my clients add over $3 billion over the last 30 years. And what I realized many years ago is that when you look at the habits training that's out there, right? Like you mentioned, the Franklin Covey or Atomic Habits or things like that. They're talking about the conscious habits, right? Conscious habits of successful people. Now, that's all well and good, but there's one enormous problem that they never told us. And that is that if you were to interview these highly successful people, you would start to realize that they're doing things unconsciously that they don't even know they're doing, number one. And therefore, number two, they can never teach it to us. So that's why I created a program, a process, a framework called the Power Habits System, the power habits of unconsciously successful people. And here's what I mean by that. When you look at the very, very successful people that we all look up to, the Bill Gates, the Warren Buffetts, the, Richard Bransons and people like that, what I realized is they are not driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake, like I talked about earlier, which 99% of humanity is driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake. So if you were to ask somebody like that, hey, how do you stop holding yourself back from success? They'd go, what are you talking about? I'm not holding myself back from success. What are you doing? And you're like, forget it. Never mind. You see, they're really no help. It's not that they're trying to hide something, but they're just like, what are you talking about? I'm not holding myself back. What's wrong with you? Right? So like we were talking earlier about my good friend Gary Vaynerchuk. He is a perfect example of someone who's unconsciously competent at allowing himself to succeed. I'll tell you a funny, true story about Gary Vee. So many, many years ago, when Gary Vee was still doing his Wine Library TV, I actually contacted his office and I saw that he was doing his very first book tour. This was his very first book. It was still talking about wine way back then. And I saw that he was going to be here in Ohio. So I contacted his office and I said, hey, I live in Ohio. Would you like me to host Gary while he's here? And they said, sure, absolutely. So, they gave me his contact information, say, pick him up at the airport. And then I literally hosted him for 2 days while he was doing his book tour here in Ohio. Now, you could never, 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 never do that today. That is long gone, right? So I had a once in a lifetime opportunity. And if you go on my website, you will see a video, which no one else on planet Earth has, of me with Gary Vee in my car all those years ago. Anyway, and he's, giving me a really nice testimonial. Anyway, so while I was hosting him for those 2 days on his book tour, now I swear to God this is true, and nobody believes me, but I was with him for 2 days, and I swear to God I never saw him eat or go to the bathroom one time. And at one point in our trip, and I'm not making this up, do you remember that movie Terminator 2 with Schwarzenegger and the kid,
Of
right?
course. Oh,
So
yeah.
at one point, I did exactly what the kid did to Schwarzenegger. I went to Gary Vee and I poked him like this on his cheek. And I said, what are you? Are you a cyborg? Like, what are you? How do you not sleep, eat? You don't go to the bathroom. What are you? And I mean, I was half joking, but I'm like, and he was like, well, I don't really need to eat. I just got to go. I'm like, oh my God, you are a nut. You're insane in a good way. But that's a perfect example. I don't know about you, but I can't pull that off. And most people can't. I'm like, dude, I got to sleep. I got to eat, you know? So that's the kind of example that we all look up to, which is great on one hand, but on the other hand, it's like, I don't know. I don't think I can do that. So that's a perfect example of being unconsciously competent at success.
Oh, yeah, he's something. I absolutely admire him. I mean, he puts out such amazing content. And you know what's cool about him is he's always cutting edge, right? He's always predicting the future when it comes to content creation, how things are going to be sold, how social is going to be evolved. And what's interesting, if you go back to his historical videos, he's not wrong. He was never wrong.
Not really.
Oh,
Not really. Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
agree.
really interesting. Like
Yes.
I love the guy. I
Yeah,
follow
me
him.
too.
He puts a ton of content out there. So you also work with Dr. Stephen Covey, and I'll bring that up a little bit because in my previous career life, if you will, I'm originally from Salt Lake City, Utah, and Franklin Covey's HQ is out there. And I had the opportunity to work with Franklin Covey. Not and I, we saw Dr. Stephen Covey, but we worked with HQ and the headquarters quite a bit. In fact, they had this the planner where you could have your weekly planner, and it was really good. It taught me foundational timing in terms of how to time block and what is important in your life, your big roles, your rocks, your goals, your objectives, every role you have in your life, and then it kind of mapped out your day. We actually took that framework and put it online, came up with a product called Plan Plus Online. I was a part of that project. And so the fact that you had Franklin Covey on there was really intriguing to me. And he wrote a very, very well known book. What was it like working with him?
Well, Dr. Stephen Covey was the inspiration for me getting into this business.
Mm.
So many, many years ago, before I ever wrote my first book, I've written 25 now, but before I wrote my first one, I knew I wanted to be an author, but I didn't know what I wanted to write about. I knew I wanted to write about success and, just being happy and having a great life and all those types of things. And I read over 400 success books, self-help books, all the way from Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, Stephen Covey, all the classics. And I was trying to find my way. So in the early 90s, I actually stumbled upon Dr. Covey's work. I was actually in my church bookstore and just browsing the shelves, and all of a sudden this book fell at my feet, literally fell off the shelf. I'm like, and there was no one around. I looked around, I'm like, what the heck was that? And I reached down, it said The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds interesting. I never heard of it before. And it was actually audio cassettes. For those of you
Hmm.
too young, you'll have to Google that. What is an audio cassette? Well, I'm old. Get it anyway. My point is, I put it in my cassette player, and I listened to it over and over again. I was literally in my car listening to it. I listened to it over and over, and tears were just running down my face because I realized that I was living the 7 habits of highly ineffective people. And so I realized that this really was the thing that changed my life, was listening to Dr. Covey. So fast forward about a year later, I had decided to go back to college and become as a religious studies major. And because I was literally following in his footsteps very consciously, because he was a religious studies major at the University of Utah. So I became a religious studies major in Amherst College. And so I was going to college, and I actually contacted his office. Now, this was before they merged with Franklin Covey. That's how long ago it was. It was still Covey Leadership Center. And so I called his office, and I said, and I somehow got his assistant, and I said, hello, my name is Noah St. John. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Covey. I'm actually following in his footsteps, and I'm writing a paper on his leadership principles. And I was wondering if I could just have a few minutes of his time. Now, in my head, I'm thinking, number one, they're going to say no. And number two, they're going to say, if they say yes, it's going to be like, a year from now, because the guy's really busy. This is Dr. Covey we're talking about. So the assistant puts me on hold, comes back on the line and says, how's next Thursday? And I went, what? I was like, what? And so I got to actually have a 20-minute uninterrupted phone call with Dr. Stephen Covey back when I was, before my career started. And I took notes on it, and I never, ever forgot that. In fact, he said one thing that I still remember to this day, and I remember it every day, because I wanted to be an author. I wanted to be like him. And so I asked him, I said, Dr. Covey, how do you handle it when people just worship you, when they just, think you're the greatest thing in the world, and are just lauding you with all these accolades? And he said something I never forgot. I remember it every day. He said, Noah, I want people to leave my seminars more impressed with themselves than with me. Wow. Isn't that powerful? And I never forgot that. And isn't that the opposite of everything we see today? Everything online, everything on social media, you were just talking about it. And it's like, look at me, 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 me. Aren't I so cool? Look at my jet. Look at my helicopter. Look at my yacht. Aren't I amazing? Yeah, you're amazing. Have you helped anybody else? That's the question I always have for these gurus. Hey, I've made all this money. Oh, great. Have you helped anyone else make money? That's why when you go to our website, when you go to noahstjohn.com, you'll see over 200 studies of my clients who I've helped to make a lot of money and win their lives back, because it's not about me. Yes, I'm the guy talking. I'm the guy that wrote all these books. I'm the guy that does the coaching, but who cares? It's about the system. It's about the framework that works for anyone who decides to use it, who decides to install these power habits. So that is how Dr. Covey inspired me, and still
Yeah, it's
does to this
amazing.
day.
It's amazing. It's so true too. To your point, there's all this posting, look at me, I'm so great. And I think that a lot of times we forget to serve. And serving, it's always like the giver's gain type of mentality. The more you give, the more you gain. I'm such a believer in that. And I think from a provider takeaway, from a medical aesthetics practice owner takeaway, if you're consistently focusing on your craft and delivering an amazing patient result, if you're focusing on the result, because one thing I also see in our industry in particular is a lot of providers get into the space with the wrong intention. They come into the space and they think that it's easy to make money in the industry. They hear about it, it's blowing up, injector here, injector there, MedSpa corner, every corner, revenue, whatever. And they get into it for the wrong reasons. And if they get into it for the right reasons, to help patient information, to inject confidence. I mean, what an extraordinary job. Can you imagine just going to work every day and helping people become more confident?
That's what I do. I don't inject people, but I inject them with
You know,
confidence.
it's amazing. I can just feel the enthusiasm and smile and see the smile on your face. It's so rewarding. But if they really, if that's how they lead into the practice as the leader, as the owner, no matter how big it is, one location, 10 locations, I don't care. That's what's going to make them feel fulfilled, and the cash will come, right? The net result will be obviously increase in revenues, and you'll be able to hire people, delegate all the stuff that you need to do. Just if anybody is tuning in that is currently not in this space, and you want to become a practice owner, you want to become a provider, you want to get into the medical aesthetics arena, get into it for the right reasons, and make sure to have your why in your back pocket as you're a patient specialist, if you will. So one other thing I want to talk to you about is you say that willpower is the worst way to change a habit. What do you mean by that?
Well, we've all heard a million times that if you want to reach your goals, you have to use willpower. So I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying that willpower is a very weak muscle. Let me give you an example. So I want you to imagine that you're in your home right now and you're sitting in your kitchen and just kind of minding your own business. And all of a sudden, someone comes into the kitchen with a plate full of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. Now, they just came out of the oven. You can smell them. The smell is wafting. You fill your nostrils and you start to like salivate a little bit. You're like, oh boy, that sure smells good. And then the person says to you, they put the plate down on the counter and they say, now, listen, those cookies are for a party we're having later. So don't eat any of those chocolate chip cookies. Whatever you do, don't eat any chocolate chip cookies. Now I have to go out and get a few more things, but don't eat any cookies. She leaves. Now, what are you going to do? You're going to eat 12 cookies, right? I mean, that's the silliest thing you ever heard, right? Of course you're going to eat them because she just told you not to, right? So that's what willpower is like. It's you saying to you, hey, don't do that thing that I really want to do in the first place. And guess what? We don't like to be told what to do, even if it's from us. So I'm not suggesting don't use willpower, but I'm just saying willpower is very weak. It's a weak muscle. So what we do with my power habit system is number one, I show you, and this is in all of my books and my coaching, my online courses, what a habit really is. Number one, and more importantly, then how do we change the habits that we really want to change? So I'll give you another example. One of the biggest habits that people come to me to help them with is procrastination, right? Hey, Noah, I know what to do, but I'm not doing it, right? Can you help me stop procrastinating? Now, out there, what do they tell you how to stop procrastinating? Hey, if you're procrastinating, don't do that. Wow, thanks a lot. I never thought of that. That's
Appreciate it.
so helpful. Thank you. I mean, seriously, but that's the advice that's out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Hey, don't procrastinate. Thanks a lot. Why don't you tell me not to breathe while you're at it? So no, it's no help. So the point is what I do that's different is I say, okay, why don't we look at number one, what are you procrastinating on? Because you can't just say, I'm procrastinating. You are procrastinating on certain things for a certain specific reason. And maybe you've never looked at that before, right? Because nobody showed you how to do this. So we have to look at number one, what you're procrastinating on, number one. Number two, why you're doing, and then we just simply install better habits. I'll give you an example from one of my clients. I was talking with one of my clients named Charles. Now he's a practitioner down in North Carolina, successful guy, was making 6 figures, doing well, but he knew he could do a lot better. And so he heard me on a program like this, and he contacted me. He actually read my Power Habits book and was watching my videos on YouTube. So he understood what makes me different. So he contacted me on my website and he said, hey, Noah, I'd really like your help. I said, okay, what's going on? And so, we talked a little bit and I said, well, Charles, I'm just curious, how much do you think it's costing you not to have these systems in place? In other words, this friction that I talk about, how much do you think that friction is costing you right now? He said, without batting an eye, $1 million. I'm easily losing out on $1 million right now because of this friction. I said, okay. Well, first of all, it's very common. I talk to people every day who say, no, this friction is costing me, costing me $1 million, 2 million or more every year, right? And it goes up. It compounds every year. It doesn't like stop. It just keeps getting worse and worse if you don't fix it. Number one. Number two, I said, okay, I tell you what, why don't you just give me 10% of that million and I'll find you $1 million in the next 12 months. In other words, if you give me $1 and I give you $10 back, is that a good deal? He goes, yeah, that's a good deal. He said, let's do it. That's why I love working with high achievers, right? Because they make decisions quickly and friendly. They don't dilly-dally. They don't say, oh, I got to think about it. I got to talk to my spouse. He said, let's just do it. So he invested $100K to get one-on-one coaching with me. That's 10% of $1 million, right? So he invested that. I coached him for a year. Now, as it turns out, I didn't find him $1 million in the next 12 months. Instead, I found him 1.8 million in just 10 months. So he gave me $1 and I gave him $18 back. Is that a good deal? No, that's a great deal. And in fact, he sent me an email and he said, "Hey, Noah, guess where I am? I'm on a 7-week vacation with my wife right now." He said, "This is a dream I've had for the last 20 years." He said, "We've always wanted to buy a new RV and just travel the country, but we never had the time or the money." So he said, "Now, because of all the money I've got, I bought a new RV and now I'm taking 7 weeks off and I'm making more than ever." So he literally said, "Thank you, Noah, for changing my life." So that's how powerful these habits are.
That's amazing. Was it just like was it a block within his framework? I'm curious, just to lean in that a little bit more. Was he just doing the same thing over and over and over again? Was he not investing in marketing? Was he not like running
Well,
like appropriate
the
tech
reason
stack?
that I'm
Or
able to help people make so much money and win their
yeah,
lives back is
yeah.
because of two factors. And it's
Uh-huh.
what I call inner game and outer game. So if you think about two circles that meet in the middle, we have one circle called inner game and one circle called outer game. And in the middle is the phenomenon called success. All right. So what I help people with, the first thing we look at is your inner game. That's everything that happens between your ears. So, like, for example, when I'm as a keynote speaker, right? You talked about conferences and things. I speak at conferences and teams and organizations, companies all around the country, around the world, whether live or virtually. So I do keynote presentations as well. When you go to my website, you can learn more about that. But so one of the things I say to my audience members is, what's one area of your life where your beliefs don't affect you? And here's what people do. They go, hmm, I go, exactly. There's no place your beliefs don't affect you, right? Your beliefs affect everything: your health, your wealth, your
Mhm, mhm.
relationships, your finances, your business, your career, everything, right? But here's the funny thing: you can't see a belief, you can only see the effects of a belief. That's why you can be doing really well in one area, but maybe you're stuck or struggling in another. For example, maybe your health is good, but maybe you're not making the money you want. Or conversely, maybe you're making good money, but your health is suffering or your relationships are suffering. You never see your family, etc. Right? So it's not cookie cutter, one size fits all. It's a very customized, personalized approach that we take, whether it's one-on-one or in our group coaching. So that's your inner game. And then you have your outer game, right? That's all of the marketing and the AI visible and all the things that I was talking about earlier. So it's only when you master your inner game and your outer game that you have the phenomenon called success. So in Charles' example, and in most of the clients that I work with, that I've coached over the last 30 years, that's what we see. We see, well, they need some help in the inner game
Mhm.
and they need some help in the outer game. 99% of the time, you need some help with both.
Yeah, yeah, I would completely agree. I mean, it's interesting as an entrepreneur, like you're especially as your business starts to scale, there's a ton of noise. Your inbox is flooded, your DMs are flooded, your phone is constantly going off, and all of a sudden a patient walks in and oh my gosh, also a mother of two kids or a father or whatever. And, life is almost like it's taking the time from you, right? A lot of things I talk about is the power of working on your business versus in your business. And especially as a provider, as a practice owner, it's so hard. I mean, especially if someone that's taking on 8 patients a day, for example, right? Which is very common in my space. That's a demand. Like that's demanding. Where do you have time to work on your business? What do you have to do? And, a lot of conversations that I've had, I said, look, it would be okay if you were to actually reduce some of your patient flow or hire a other provider and delegate some of those opportunities to them. And yes, maybe the business is going to see a setback for a short period of time, but at least it's going to open up that opportunity to where you can actually have more time to buy your time back and see where are the holes, where are the gaps, what am I doing, what am I not seeing, right? Business will put up blinders, especially a very high impact, high velocity type of business. Patients coming in the door, emails going off, the EMR is pinging, and half the time they got to wear the marketing hat, the CFO hat, right? And so it's quite challenging. I mean, I have so much respect for providers and practice owners, obviously, because of what they do, but they also have a very challenging work life.
And
And
everything you just talked about is an
yeah,
example of friction, which
yep,
is what I opened this program by talking
that's the
about. Every
that's the
business
friction.
problem you're facing is a friction problem. That's why you need a zero friction solution. And of course, that's what I provide.
Yeah, and, I've never met a practice owner that says, "No, I'm good. I don't want to scale. I don't want to grow."
Right.
I've yet to find one. I've
No,
yet to.
you're probably not gonna.
A lot of times I'll say, "Well, how many patients are you guys seeing a week?" And the number is wild. I said, "Well, how much of that is you, practice owner?" right?
Right.
Provider,
Right.
owner. And 9 times out of 10, that provider owner is the main breadwinner for the
Exactly.
practice.
Exactly.
And they're worried. They're worried that saying, "Hey, you know what? But I'm worried about the revenue. Our costs are high. I don't want my patients to go somewhere else." And really, if they were to just take a step back and take that administrative day, and that administrative day doesn't mean go get a massage and go sleep and take a nap. Sure, we all have to do that. Self care, get it, all that. But that administrative day, if you're, and I'll say this like very confidently for the listeners, if you're not taking it an administrative day and taking that day serious, that should be your hardest working day of the week, I would argue. Okay. It's your administrative day that gives you the one opportunity to work on your business. And maybe you shouldn't be at the practice because there's noise at the practice. You need to be focusing on signal, right? Like Elon Musk is like incredible. He's like all signal, no noise. That guy, talk about a cyborg.
So true.
Dude, that guy is crazy. But and just if you guys aren't doing that, I see a lot of times. Hey, you know what? We're going to be open Saturday. Maybe we'll even be open Sunday. I see other providers that a lot of them used to take Mondays off. That was administrative day. Well, now their patient load's so high, they'll be open on Monday. I
Right.
think you're doing yourself a disservice if you do that. Now, obviously, we want to see patients. You want to help people. I get it, but at the same time, burnout's real, right? You
Definitely.
you can't run at 10,000 RPMs for 20 years. And if you delegate and hire people, yes, set back short period of time for long term gain. And so, I love what you're saying there with the friction. And we're our own worst enemy, right? Because some say you can't see it. You're almost like blocked by it because, well, if I see all these patients, I'm going to make an extra, a few $1,000s for the week, the month, whatever. I can cover costs. They're going to be happy.
Right.
You're trapping yourself,
Exactly.
right? I love that, man. So, last thing I have for you, and I know you're super busy, but you also teach your clients a lot about legendary freedom, lifestyle formula. Um, I know we've kind of talked about some of that stuff, but legendary freedom. Let's talk about that for a sec. That's
Yeah, I
big.
call it my freedom lifestyle framework or
Mhm.
freedom lifestyle formula. So it really has four elements, and those are time, energy, relationships, and money. All right. So I talked about this earlier. When you go to noahstjohn.com and you can get that free custom GPT, but you can also get the zero friction CEO gap audit. So it's called the zero friction gap audit. That's free. And what it is you answer 14 about where you are, and it will actually show you the friction that you're facing and how much it's costing you. Then we have something called a zero friction profit scan. And that is where we go in depth into your business specifically. And if we can't find at least $100,000 of friction, then your profit scan is free. So going to get your gap audit is kind of like going to a general practitioner and seeing how well you're doing. But getting your zero friction profit scan is like getting a CAT scan for your business brain. It's a CAT scan. So that's why the zero friction profit scan, there is an investment in that. It's a very small investment compared to the money you're losing with friction. But that's why we're saying if we can't find at least $100,000, then it's free. All right. So, where we're looking at are those four areas: time, energy, relationships, and money. And wherever you have friction, then you're not living that freedom lifestyle that I've helped thousands of people to literally create in their lives and in their business.
That's amazing. Well, dude, you're an incredible human being. I appreciate everything that you've done, the books that you write, the content you put out. Thank you so much for coming on, this podcast and rapping with us and giving us so much expertise and advice. I think at this point, people know where to find you. They can go to noahstjohn.com. There's so many tools on there. Anywhere that they should follow you socially, check out your YouTube videos. That's all available.
Yep. YouTube is watchnoahtv.com. Easy to remember. I want to watch Noah TV. Watchnoahtv.com. That'll forward right to the YouTube channel. But yeah, noahstjohn.com. And yeah, make sure you get that zero friction CEO gap audit and also the custom GPT. And, listen, if you want to just talk to me, you can book a call with me or one of my coaches at breakthroughwithnoah.com. Also very easy to remember. I'm known as the breakthrough coach. So just go to breakthroughwithnoah.com and you can book a 15-minute breakthrough consultation. But I highly recommend that you do the gap audit first. So that way, you come to the call and you're armed with that information, and then we can just direct you in the right way. All that's at noahstjohn.com and breakthrough with Noah.
Right on. Thanks. No, I really appreciate you coming on and your expertise. And guys, go check him out. He's obviously got a tremendous track record, knows his stuff, built a lot of incredible features, big on AI, big on really just solving gaps, finding ways to unleash and unlock the powers that be. And every single one of you are successful, and we all want to be more successful. And we have to find those areas of opportunity that's going to help us get to the next level. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much. My only ask for you guys is if you found this particular episode valuable, please share it. Share it with your colleagues and friends. That's my biggest ask. And we'll see you next time. Until next time, happy injecting.